Pick a quarterback to start Week 11 against the Miami Dolphins. GM for Gardner Minshew, DR for Desmond Ridder, CB for Carter Bradley. Coming up here on today's show, I'm going to tell you what the Raiders are probably going to do and what I would do at the quarterback position. The Las Vegas Raiders and Antonio Pierce have a tough decision to make, so I am going to do my best to help out the Silver and Black, and I'm hoping that you guys do the exact same thing down in the comments section. Now, Antonio Pierce on Monday said that he's not going to name a starting quarterback yet, which I don't necessarily blame him. I would try to make Miami speculate of whether it's going to be Minshew, whether it's going to be Ridder, and obviously the Dolphins aren't getting ready this week because they're getting ready for their own game. The Raiders are on a bye this week, but I'm telling you this right now because I've seen down in the comments on some of my social media videos that I put out there, Carter Bradley will not be in consideration to start for the Raiders at any point this season unless Gardner, Desmond, and Aiden O'Connell get injured. So the Raiders are only going to consider Minshew. They're only going to consider Desmond Ridder. So I figured today I would lay out the reasons of why it makes sense for the Raiders to start Minshew, why it makes sense for the Raiders to start Ridder, and why it doesn't make sense to start either of those QBs, and then kind of lay out a plan of what the Silver and Black are going to be able to do over the next 3 weeks while they wait for Aiden O'Connell to get back. So here we go. We're going to break down why the Raiders should and should not start Gardner Minshew. That's how we're going to start out today's show. He's been the main starting quarterback for this team for most of this season. He's got 8 starts right now under his belt. The first reason of why, if I was the Raiders, I would start Gardner Minshew. Minshew could be better without Luke Getsy. You paid Minshew 2 years, $25 million. You had him come into this season for a reason. You were hoping that he was going to be the starting quarterback. You fired Getsy, and now maybe he was going to be better under Scott Turner. Quite frankly, I would bet my money that Minshew is better under Scott Turner if he has confidence. Because when you look at Minshew's numbers right now of what he has done this season with Getsy compared to his entire career, I should mention that he has played in 6 NFL seasons, 57 games in total. His completion percentage is the second best of his NFL career right now. But then after that, 4th lowest in terms of yards per game, his lowest touchdown percentage of his career, his second lowest interception percentage of his career, so not good, his lowest quarterback rating, his lowest QBR, his lowest sack percentage, and also his lowest yards gained per completion. Gardner Minshew is playing the worst football of his career, and I wonder if it's a little bit of Luke Getsy. Maybe it's just tied in because this team does not have a lot of talent right now on the offensive side of the football, and the O-line can't block. But maybe it's a crazy idea. Maybe Minshew's better without Luke Getsy. Let's go to the next reason here of why I believe that Minshew could be the quarterback one this week. The O-line should be better, which is going to help out a quarterback like Gardner. If you thought that Gardner was going to be able to step in and be the quarterback of this team and just carry the load, slinging the rock, then I'm sorry, you're going to be really disappointed. With now that we got Joe Philbin, who is the interim offensive line coach, I'm just anticipating that overall everything on the offense is going to be slightly better. And if it's just slightly better, that might then help Gardner do what he's best at. Being a little bit of a play-action guy, using his legs, using some rollouts. Because if you're just going to put Gardner in the pocket and expect to pick apart a defense, you're going to be very disappointed, which is what Luke Getsy's been doing. Let's go to the final reason here is the Raiders are taking the bye week off. And if AP's staying true to his word, which I've said multiple times, I actually really hope that he's not. I don't think that the Raiders should get the whole week off. They haven't earned the right to get the whole week off. They're 2-7, and they just fired 3 freaking coaches, for the love of God. But if the Raiders are legitimately going to take the entire Week 10 off, and then they're just going to get right back to the thing of next Monday, let's say, and do a normal week of practice and prepare, maybe you just put Gardner out there again because you didn't give Desmond the extra time. If the Raiders are going to use that extra week of practice, I would invest that time with Desmond Ridder, with this offense, and trying to get it up on track because AP's job is on the line, whether y'all realize it or not. Coming up next, though, why the Raiders shouldn't start Gardner Minshew. And I think for a lot of people that have watched this show, for the real ones out there, for a lot of people that are subscribed, you probably already know some of these reasons, and I'll get into these in just a moment. But for those of you who don't know our live schedule for this week, Chugs and I are going to be live Thursday Night Football, like we always are, Ravens, Bengals, and we got a special surprise at halftime in this game, which I think you guys are going to like. Week 10, I'm going to be live at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, even though the Raiders do not play. The Giants have an early game, and then also the Saints, the Jags, and the Patriots all play at 1 o'clock. And I'm going to be rooting for those three teams because if those teams win, Raiders could potentially be at number 2 on the draft board by Sunday's end. And then Tuesday, I'm going to be live like I usually am, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notices are on in case anything happens. So here we go. Why the Raiders should not start Gardner Minshew. Because quite frankly, I think our offense, even if they watch this show or not, can use all the help that they possibly can get. Right now, Minshew has absolutely positively no confidence in himself. And when your quarterback doesn't have any confidence, your team doesn't have any confidence, your offense doesn't have any confidence, when your captain of your football team, one of the captains, has shown time and time again that when he's out there on the field, he looks like a puppy dog scared in the rain. And when that happens, it is a whole downward effect to the rest of your team. If Minshew's going to go out there and play like the quarterback that I know he can be, and that's one of the reasons why I like Minshew. He was always a very confident dude in his own ability, and he had like that, weird swagger. Like, that's what made Minshew great, and he has lost that. Maybe he can get it back with Scott Turner. Let's go to another reason here why Minshew should not start. Minshew has just simply turned over the football way too many times. You're not going to win in the National Football League. You're not going to win in college. You're not going to win in high school football. I don't care what you do. When you turn the ball over as many times as Gardner has, right now he leads the NFL in turnovers with 12. And he hasn't even started every game. Yes, some of these teams have a bye. Jordan Love has been injured. Will Levis has been benched a little bit. But at the end of the day, you're not going to win when your quarterback has turned over the ball this much, especially when you're also failing to force turnovers. And then the final reason of why Minshew should not start is if you were ever going to go to Desmond Ridder, I feel like right now is the time to do it. You fired 3 coaches. You got a brand new OC or a play caller. You got a brand new offensive line coach, and you have the extra week of preparation. If I'm Antonio Pierce and I don't name a starting quarterback, that's fine. But if I am actually considering starting Desmond Ridder, I'm going to tell Desmond, and I'm going to tell the offense that even though you're off this week, you guys got to prepare because we got to be ready to rock and roll when we get back there for Week 11 against Miami because it's a do-or-die week every single week for the Raiders from here on out. Coming up next here on the show, oh my gosh, I saw the picture, and I'm not kidding you. Every time I see 10, I just think of Jimmy Garoppolo, and I just want to punch that guy square in the dick. But coming up next here, we're going to get into why the Raiders should and should not start Desmond Ridder, because if I'm going to talk about it with Gardner, I got to also talk about it with number 10 right here. Before I get into that, though, today's show sponsor is Game Time. If you haven't already seen, I'm going to the Mavs Bulls game, and I am excited in order to be able to do that. I got my tickets on Game Time. You could probably also keep up to date with me on how those games are going on social media. If you want to see where I'm sitting, if you want to see where Alex and I are doing at the game. I love Game Time, and I think you guys will too. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, that's CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. If you go and download the app, you have to look at the Game Time picks and you have to look at the all-in pricing. The Game Time picks are what helps you be able to find the best prices. So like for me, when I go shopping, and I'm not afraid to admit this, if I'm going to go shopping, the first place I go is the clearance rack, or the first place that I look for, like if I'm online shopping, is if I do like the feature or filter, that's the word I'm looking for. I look at sale. I look at deals. That's kind of what Game Time picks is, because you're gonna get a lot of options. But wouldn't you want the most bang for your buck? If you're like, yeah, that's how I shop, then that's why you need to go download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS. That link is going to be available to everybody who's watching the show down in the comments, down in the description of this video. If you want to create long-lasting memories, I promise you this. You might not always remember the score, but you will remember being there. So download Game Time today. Shout out to them for sponsoring the Raiders Report. So here's why Desmond Ridder should be the quarterback one right now for the Raiders. I personally think that when you look at Scott Turner's offense, and it's a small sample size from 3 years when he was the OC with the Washington Commanders, but then also when you go back and you look at some of Norv Turner's offense, and I'm not saying it's going to be the exact same thing, but Norv is a very well-respected offensive mind. Hell, I went back and I looked at a video. It was Troy Aikman in his Hall of Fame speech, and Aikman is talking about how much Norv Turner did for his career and kind of helped, jumpstart it. I think Desmond Ridder needs a little help jumpstarting his career, and I do think when you look at when it's at its best, executing plays, picking up first downs, converting in the red zone, go back and watch some of the tape there for some of those Commanders games. I think when you look at the skill set of Ridder, it fits better with a guy like Scott Turner. Let's go to the next reason here. Could Ridder spark the Raiders team? Kind of like Aiden O'Connell did. The Raiders bench Jimmy, the Raiders bench Brian Hoyer, and then all of a sudden you throw in Aiden O'Connell, a rookie, and you say, can he make it happen? And the team kind of rallied around him. I almost wonder, I'm not saying that Ridder's better than Aiden, I'm not saying that Ridder's better than Minshew, quite frankly, but sometimes you just need a spark. And this is a Raiders team that, quite frankly, just needs a spark. And we haven't tried it yet. So let's try something that we haven't done because nothing's really working this season. The last reason why I would do it is I have said that Ridder's legs are going to open up the ground game. There's probably a giggity in there somewhere. But when you look at how Ridder's ground game can then help out the running backs, it's also going to help out create throws down the field because teams are going to have to respect the idea that Desmond can run with the football. And when you have quarterbacks that have no fear whatsoever and running the ball, teams just play you a lot differently. I know that Desmond is not a very good quarterback. I know that Gardner's not a very good quarterback. It just simply comes down to, for me, the reason why you got to consider it also is you got to try something different. Let's go to why Desmond Ridder should not be the quarterback. Ridder has been on the team for only 2 weeks, and right now the Raiders are not practicing during the bye week. So does he have the chemistry? Does he have the timing? And when you consider you're adding all of this on top of the fact that the Raiders just fired 3 coaches, it does. It makes it a little bit more difficult. The next reason here, you got a new OC, a new O-line coach, and a new quarterback is so many changes. And there's that old expression, if it's not broken, don't fix it. What happens if it is broken? And then you add all these other pieces that you're trying to fix. Sometimes it can make it even worse. I'm not going to lie, one of my worries is in a week where we went unprepared because we didn't practice, you add all these new coaches, you add a brand new quarterback, could the offense actually be worse? I don't think so. I hope not, but I've been a Raider fan long enough. I mean, as long as we can at least get past the 50-yard line, because I can't do one of those games again. The final reason here of why I don't know if it should be Ridder, Ridder has also struggled with turnovers. He fumbled the ball last week in the minimal time that he was playing. He looked good. Like, he was 11 of 16. I want to say 80-something yards, a touchdown. Like, was able to move the football down the field. But then when you go back and you look at just last season with him in Atlanta, in 13 games, 24 turnovers. Desmond has a fumbling problem, just like Gardner has a fumbling problem, just like Derek Carr had a fumbling problem. If he can limit the turnovers and just hang on to the football, because that's what the Raiders need, but let's face it, he has struggled with turnovers overall. So in conclusion, I personally would start Ridder simply because we haven't done it yet, and I just want to see something different for this football team. We're 2-7. Desmond's not going to take us to the playoffs. Minshew's not going to take us to the playoffs. There's not a quarterback on this roster. There's not a quarterback available that's going to take us to the playoffs. So what I would do is try to find a young quarterback, see if he can spark the offense, and then what if Desmond's decent? Could we hang on to him next offseason instead of paying all that money to Gardner Minshew? I'm thinking long-term with Desmond. Here's what I think, though, that the Raiders are going to do. And this is just based off of my gut feeling of what AP is going to do. I'm not saying this is what they're going to do. I think that Minshew is going to get the start week 11 on the road in Miami. Antonio Pierce has spoke about how he values Minshew on the road, and I think it's actually one of the reasons why they decided to go with Gardner at the beginning of the season, because they started the 2 games on the road. If Minshew's bad, then I could see them going to Desmond Ridder week 12 against the Denver Broncos, because Ridder is yet to play against Denver, and it's a home game. When you put your quarterback in a home environment, it makes it a little bit easier for them to succeed. And if you're going to go to Desmond, I do think that he's got to be ready to succeed. Aiden O'Connell, then, I believe, is going to start week 13. He's dealing with that fractured thumb. He's eligible to return in week 13. And I think if, Desmond and if Gardner are going to play the way that I think that they're going to play, don't get me wrong. If the Raiders win the next 2 games, you probably don't go back to Aiden O'Connell, but I don't see that happening. And then week 13 is probably going to be the AOC show for the remainder of the season. But what do you guys think here? When Aiden returns, is he the starter? Like, give me a yes, give me a no. And this is a little bit of a difficult question, and I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. You're about to get it with the YouTube ad break. Scroll on down and give me your answer. I think that the Raiders will go with Aiden because I think that they view Aiden as the best quarterback on this team right now. They don't have much confidence in Desmond. They don't have much confidence in Gardner Minshew, but I wonder if Raider fans, how they answer that question, because a lot of fans at this point are like, Mitch, let's just tank. We're not trying to win games. Put in Carter Bradley. I think if you have that mindset, you might not want Aiden O'Connell to start. But for me, I know this team's going to try to win games, which is why I think that they're going to put in Aiden once he returns. Here's what I would do at the quarterback spot. I'm starting Desmond Ridder week 11. If week 12 is solid, or if week 11 is a good week for Ridder, and I'm not saying like they have to win for Ridder to start. If Ridder plays like shit and the Raiders win, I don't think you need to start Ridder week 12. If Ridder plays well and the Raiders lose, or if Ridder plays well and the Raiders win, roll with him week 12, and then so on and so forth. If he doesn't play well, then you go back to Gardner Minshew. But no matter what, if Aiden O'Connell is ready, I'm going to put him out there week 13 because he does give you the best chance to win. And even if Aiden's out there, that doesn't mean that this team's going to win many football games. Before I get out of here, though, reminder, this is a very important video where I want you guys to go down in the comments. I want you to answer those questions. I know people from the Raiders watch this show. I know it for a fact. And I know that we have a loud voice together. I can be loud. Chugs can be loud. When we're all together, we can be deafening.